Let's go to the telephone talk lines right now, and let's check in with my buddy, Doug Miles. Welcome in, Doug.
Hi, Dr. Ron. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Good to be with you, and just getting set for tomorrow's big Buccaneers-Lions game. I know a lot of the fans around the country have heard our show before and talking about the Buccaneers, and they finally get a chance to see them on national television.
Well, that's about time. When was the last time they were on national TV, the Buccaneers? I think that's a good trivia question.
Yeah, 1983 is the last time they were on national TV. That was one of those Saturday afternoon affairs at the end of the season. But the last time they were on nighttime, either a Monday night or a Thursday night game, was 1980 when they were in their glory years. They had a couple of good years back then, of course, winning the Central Division in '79 and going to the championship game. And in 1980, they also had a pretty good season. But since then, it's been the doldrums, and finally this year TNT is going to give them a shot to see what they can do on national television.
Well, Doug, both teams are 1-1 in their in the NFC division. How do you view that game?
It's a big game for the Buccaneers. Actually, big for both teams because we know the Bucs beat the Lions in Game 1 of the season and gave everybody down here in Tampa, Florida, some hope that they might finally be a contending team. Then we all know what happened last week against the Rams. A good team comes into Tampa Stadium, just blows them out. Vinny Testaverde has a bad game, so he's due to put it together again. All week long in training camp and in practice sessions, he's been doing his Greta Garbo act. He wants to be left alone, was not talking to the press, so maybe he's going to channel some of that anger he's felt all week long and frustration and put on a good show Sunday night. At least that's what the fans down here are hoping.
I'd like to see that for Vinny Testaverde's sake, probably more so than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because in many ways I feel he's taken a bum rap, by the Tampa Bay media to a degree. By the same token, Doug, as we have mentioned before, Testaverde has all the tools necessary. He's lacked coaching, really, over the past 4 years with Tampa Bay.
I agree with you. Ray Perkins hasn't been one of my favorite coaches in the past. I go back to when he was coaching the New York Giants, and a couple other guys in the media room were talking about that one day, and he really messed up the Giants. You could say, well, he took them to the playoffs back in the late 1970s, but then he left them right before they were on the verge of making the playoffs again to go to Alabama, and then they went downhill for a couple of years. So this guy's never really been a favorite coach among New York fans, and down here he still has a lot to prove.
Well, those NFC standings, and the NFC Central in particular, would you have expected the Chicago Bears to head the top of that list?
Not at all. They've been the early season surprise. They beat Green Bay last week, but I think the jury's still out on them. This weekend's going to be a tough test. They're playing the Minnesota Vikings, always a tough, hard-hitting game. And actually, if the Buccaneers can win this, then they'll have a 2-0 divisional record, and that is very important when it comes to the tiebreakers. So it's a really big game for the Buccaneers this week, and if they can put a good showing together, perhaps you can throw out last weekend's game as just having an off week, but the Buccaneers have been saying that ever since Ray Perkins has been there. Well, just wait, we'll get our confidence together, we'll get it going. So far, we haven't seen anything.
Well, that game between Minnesota and, of course, Chicago. Minnesota 1-1, Chicago 2-0. I'm going to have to go with Chicago in that game, Doug. Question is, who's going to start at quarterback?
For Chicago?
Yes.
I think Harbaugh is supposed to start.
You never know till the last minute.
Last I heard, Harbaugh, yeah. But Minnesota's a kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team themselves. They have a good game one week and a bad game the next week. Wade Wilson, kind of an inconsistent quarterback, and the Vikings always seem to put together a good drive right before the playoffs and then fall apart when the games count. So it's hard to predict what the Vikings are going to do. The Bears coming off a tough season last year. It all depends if Mike Ditka can keep his temper in check. He's been known to blow up a bit on the sidelines.
Yeah, we don't want to see him elevate his blood pressure any more than it is. But the Vikings have an injury to running back Rick Fenny. He has a groin pull, I understand. I don't know whether he's going to be in that game or not, but if he is, that could certainly affect him.
Another game a lot of the fans in Florida are going to be interested in is the Dolphins and the New York Giants. They'll be playing up in the Meadowlands, two undefeated teams. The Dolphins haven't been in first place after 2 games, I guess, since 1983, and it's about time for Dan Marino and crew to finally put together a winning season. I think this year they may have more experience and more tools to do it. Don Shula, always one of my favorite coaches, and it's going to be a tough test for them going against the Giants.
Doug Miles, I appreciate your side of the story.
Always good to talk to you, Dr. Ron. Enjoy your show.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much. That's dedicated to all the women wanted to get into the men's locker rooms. Denise Tom of USA Today. And, of course, Lisa Olson. The only way... Hey, this is for you, ladies. Take it off. Take that, Sam Weish. Victor Kayam. All right, everybody into the locker room, and you'll have to take your clothes off. And it continues and continues. Let's check in right now with my buddy Doug Miles, one of the best talk show hosts in this country. Doug, welcome in.
Thanks, Ron. I love that little music. I'm going to steal that idea if you don't mind, Ron.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right.
That's great. Yeah, I was just going to bring that topic up. I'm glad you started off with a little strip of music there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, more.
Yeah.
I'm back in the country.
That's right. Okay, you guys, you can get into the women's locker room if you want to.
Yeah.
Equality for all. Denise Tom of USA Today. Lisa Olson. Oh, yeah. Hey, get around. What are you surrounding me for? Doug, they're all surrounding me here in the studio.
Oh. Doing anything suggestive?
Of course not. I feel so humiliated. All right, Doug Miles. There's my buddy.
That's great.
Doug, how you been?
I've been pretty good. I like that. I just was going to bring up the topic, and I don't know if you saw this interview I guess it was last week, where they had Lisa Olson on with Bob Costas on that NFL show he does. I mean, she was whining and complaining. I mean, I'm not sure Victor Kyan was all wrong in what he called her.
Well, see, unfortunately, she became the issue. And that's one of the problems. But, it continues. I understand there's what's known now as a Weish law. Have you heard of that? They're passing some new rules in the National Football League, Doug?
I know last week he set up curtains in the locker room out in Los Angeles, and they were supposed to have a little separate media room there where, the players were going to be clothed and behind the curtains. So is that the law they're talking about?
It very well may be. I think it'll be all right. I have no problem with that.
No, I think you and I have talked about it before. We've said from day one, I wouldn't care if, we have to go in the locker room, they have a separate media room. I mean, I don't think anybody likes going in that locker room. It's just something you sort of have to do,
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's somebody that wants to talk to you, Doug.
Who's there?
Yeah, I think we have a call for you. Terry in Grove, Oklahoma, KWMQ. Am I correct, Terry?
Yes.
Okay, ladies and men's locker room. Terry, go ahead. You're on with Doug Miles.
Hello.
Yes, I heard on just the remark you made about women in men's locker rooms.
Yes.
And, well, there's a school around here. It's a high school, but it's Veneta High School.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just 2 years ago, they had a girl on the football team.
Oh, that's not unusual, as a matter of fact, Terry. There have been many females, young women that wanted to try it, and indeed have tried it and played on high school football teams.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that, Doug?
I don't really like that. I mean, it might sound sexist, but, why would a girl want to play in a football team anyway? They just don't belong there.
Well, I know many women from the National Organization of Women that would certainly want to play on a men's football team.
I mean, if they want to play football, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Wrestling is another thing.
Oh, in other words, you're talking about mud wrestling.
Yeah.
Hey, Terry?
Yes.
Are you a high school student?
No, I quit school.
Why'd you quit school?
Because I had to get me a job.
Do you plan on going back?
Yes, I'm taking correspondence classes.
Okay, good. Don't ever neglect your education. If you want to succeed, I don't want to be on my soapbox here, but I think I'm giving you some pretty good advice. Go back for your education. That's one of the ways to succeed in life. And we stress that on this program, not just on the athletic field, but from an academic perspective as well. You want to succeed? Get yourself an education. That's the best route to success.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. That's what everyone's telling me.
Well, they're giving you some good advice, Terry.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll take it. Thank you for the call.
Okay.
Okay, Doug?
Yeah.
Talk to us tomorrow about that important game in the NFC division
Right,
between
we'll be
the
there
Tampa
with
Bay
the
Buccaneers.
Tampa Bay Bucks and the Green Bay Packers at the stadium, and we're looking forward to another good, hard-hitting battle.
Well, that's an important game for both teams, really.
Really is. Buccaneers coming off a bad loss last week to the Cowboys. The Pack lost to the Bears last week, so they both really need a divisional win this Sunday.
Well, in that game right now, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are slightly favored.
I think they're favored by 2. I'm not sure exactly the line, but they are slightly favored in the game. But then again, they were favored last week in Dallas, so that really means nothing when it comes to the Bucs.
Well, right now, Tampa Bay is right behind Chicago in that NFC Central Division, followed by Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota. But if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could win this game, they could be in pretty good shape in their division.
Could be back at least a tie for first place if Chicago loses their game. But I think it's just more important for the Buccaneers to get some offense going. There's been a lot of talk down here how conservative or ultra-conservative Coach Ray Perkins is with his team, running the ball 90% of the time, not letting Vinny Testaverde really air it out. And he's got the talent to do that. And this guy can really throw a ball about 80 yards. Why not open up with the long bombs once in a while? But down here, he just won't do it.
Well, that's one thing I never really understood either from Coach Ray Perkins, why he doesn't let Testaverde air that ball out, throw some more passes. I think last week, what did he throw, about 12 passes?
He threw only about 4 or 5 in the first half, and they let him throw a couple more in the second. It was too late at that time. They just had nothing going.
I can understand wanting to establish a ground game, but when you have talent like a Testaverde and you have Mark Carrier and Bruce Hill, why not utilize these players to their maximum and throw that ball?
They have so much more talent this year than they've ever had before. You mentioned Carrier and Hill as the receivers. You have a good tight end in Ron Hall, and you have Gary Anderson in the backfield and some other great runners like Reggie Cobb. So they have so many weapons, they're just not utilizing them, and it's really hard to figure out. I can understand a few years ago when they really had nobody, you had to run it because, they had nobody to throw to and basically one runner. But now they get so many weapons, it just makes no sense if they're not using them.
What about the status of Vinny Testaverde? I understand he had a problem with turf toe.
Right, he suffered that turf toe injury last week in Dallas. He was held out of practice for a couple of days. He did work out with the team on Thursday and Friday, so he's expected to start, and I don't think it'll bother him too much.
And I understand that Sterling Sharp has a problem with his ribs. He's probably not going to be playing.
Yeah, he was listed as questionable a couple of days ago, so we'll see tomorrow what's the story there. But I look for Don Mikowski to come out throwing that ball Sunday.
There's no doubt. They're going to be
look a little bit sharper and getting back to that form that he had last year.
Well, I remember last year that Sterling Sharp burned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Controversial game at Tampa Stadium.
Yes, it was. That was at Tampa Stadium, sure.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting battle tomorrow. I think the Buccaneers are going to have to air it out because Mikowski's going to come in there throwing.
Doug, you surprised by the comeback of the Chicago Bears in that Central Division?
I am. I really didn't think they'd have anything this year. I mean, they had a dismal season in 1989. Mike Ditka almost quitting the team over how bad his team was playing. At one time he said this team may never win another game. And this year coming out with that 4-1 record, I am surprised, although they did lose to the Raiders a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know. I don't think they're quite as good as many people are starting to think they are. I think they're about maybe 9-7, 10-16. That division might be won with a 9-7 or 10-6 record.
Well, Los Angeles Rams are coming into Chicago tomorrow, and of course, Chicago is favored by 2 points. The Los Angeles Rams are 1-3, Chicago 4-1. I don't feel, however, Doug, that the LA Rams are going to be a pushover.
No, I think the Rams are going to win this game pretty big because they were edged out last week, a tough loss to Cincinnati in that overtime. They're a much better team than that record indicates. We saw down here in Tampa how they just totally destroyed the Bucs. I guess the second week of the season. So I think the Rams are going to come out firing, and they know they need a win right now just to keep pace in the West. I mean, they can't let San Francisco get more than 2 or 3 games ahead of them.
Sure. During the preseason, people, the press in particular, of course, and everybody was really talking about the Chicago Bears. Who's going to be their starting quarterback due to the controversy between Harbaugh or Tomczak? And obviously, it really has not affected that team too much right now.
No, quarterbacks never seem to have been a problem with the Bears as far as who's in there. The offense seems to run no matter who's calling the signals. Harbaugh's had success as well as Tomczak. They really are interchangeable, which is unusual in the NFL. Most teams have a lead guy and then a backup, but they really have kind of a dual starting position there.
I know that wide receiver, Wendell Davis, has a hamstring problem. I'm not so sure if he'll be playing. But the Bears are hampered by some injuries. Is it Harbaugh who has that the rib injuries?
It might be. I'm not exactly sure, but it could be.
I think it's Harbaugh. But, the Chicago Bears certainly have impressed me and surprised me this year, just by virtue of the controversy and how lousy they did last year, really.
Yeah, it is one of the more surprising records. I think another surprise, you got to look at the Miami Dolphins. People down here in Florida are pretty excited about that team. Don Shula, the last couple of years, has struggled with 8-8 clubs and not making the playoffs for about 5 years, but getting off to a great start this season and a good comeback win last week against the Jets.
You can never count out a Don Shula coach team, that's for sure. But another surprise, really, in the National Football League, of course, specifically the NFC Central Division, the Minnesota Vikings. And Jerry Burns, I have a strong feeling he's not going to be with that team after this year.
Every year, toward the end of the season, when the Vikings pull their late-season fade, there's always talk about him getting the boot. I think this year could definitely be the year because they have gotten off to a horrible start, losing to the Bucs in a last-second play by Testaverde, and they look pretty bad.
In the game tomorrow between the Seattle Seahawks and the L.A. Raiders, the Raiders in that game, Doug, are favored by 5.5 points. How do you see the outcome?
Are they playing in Los Angeles?
Yes, they're playing in Los Angeles.
Yeah, if they're playing in the Dome, I'd say the Seahawks would win that one. I think it'll be a close battle, but I think the Raiders will come back on that one.
Well, the one to watch in that NFC Eastern Division, of course, is between the New York Giants and the Washington Redskins. The Giants being 4-0, the Washington Redskins 3-1.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. I think the Giants right now are the best team in football, even surpassing the 49ers. They've just been so strong defensively. The offense, not what you call a razzle-dazzle offense, but a very effective one. I think the Giants right now are the team to beat in the NFC. I don't think the 49ers are quite as good as last year, and I think the Giants are maybe a notch above them right now.
Well, that's going to be the game to watch, of course, on television in your local area. Doug Miles, as usual, I thank you so much, and we'll be looking forward to speaking with you on our Sunday edition of the All Sports Magazine radio show.
Thank you, Dr. Ron. Always a lot of fun.
Always enjoyable. We're going to take a short break. No question about it. So how have you been, Doug?
I've been okay, traveling around. I'd like to sound off right now on a guy that's kind of ticking me off lately. We've talked about him before in the show, Ron. Deion Sanders.
Neon Deion.
This guy is going to be getting a $2.5 million contract to finish out the season with the Yankees, not go to football until the season's over. Here's a guy who's batting 154 going into tonight's game. He's getting $1 million guaranteed, and the other $1.5 million pretty much if he just finishes out the season. It's crazy. The only guy making more money would be Don Mattingly, and that's a guy who's earned his money over the years. You don't mind him getting the big dollars, but what about other guys like Dave Righetti, who's put in great service, and other Yankees like Roberto Kelly, who has infinitely more talent than Deion Sanders has shown, and is not a jerk. I think Sanders should just go to football camp and take a couple of hits.
Well, I think you're absolutely correct in terms of why should he make that amount of money in light of of a Don Mattingly. But I think that, Doug, his salary can go up to as much as $2.5 million, and, he really hasn't done anything.
He's done nothing, and the man, ever since he came to Yankee camp, even into the professional football, and even going back to his days in college in Florida, the guy's been nothing but like a Muhammad Ali clone with the bragging and boasting, and he's never really done anything. And he's, from day one, said, I'm going to be the greatest, I'm the best, and from day one, he's been just a jerk to the media, and kind of a jerk on the baseball field. I don't think he deserves anything.
You're right. Doug, I'm going to ask you to stand by because we're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, I'd like to pick this up. Stick with us. This is the All Sports Magazine radio show. And we are back. We're speaking with my colleague Doug Miles, correspondent for the All Sports Magazine radio show, and Times in-studio host with me. Doug, let's pick it up with Neon Deion.
Okay, we're sounding off on him earlier, right before the break. Here's another guy I want to sound off on, Ron, is our old buddy Andre Agassi. I got to say one good thing. Hooray for Michael Chang. He finally knocked this bozo out of a tournament. Chang beat Agassi in the Canadian Open the other day, and it's good to see that bonehead out of the tournament. I like a guy like Michael Chang. He's not been spoiled by the successes of his career so far. He won the French Open a year ago and has continued to come back from some physical problems. Agassi, on the other hand, has never really won anything of any consequence, and all he does is mouth off to the press, and he won't even play Wimbledon. So, hooray for Michael Chang and Agassi. You can go back home and play the slots in Las Vegas.
I think that Agassi is a much overrated tennis player.
I really don't see the big deal with this guy. You know, he's got a hard serve. He can pound the ball pretty hard, but so can 150 other guys on the tennis tour. He's never really won anything big. All he's got is wears flashy neon-colored underwear. That's about it.
You know, he sort of reminds me in a way of Brian Bosworth when he came up.
There's another guy that never has been one of my favorites.
Yeah.
You don't want to ever see somebody get injured, and it is a shame that he has arthritic condition in his shoulders. But as far as his antics off the field and just on the field too, I never really liked him either. He was always mouthing off to the press, and he never really did anything either. In college football or pro football, that made him deserve the kind of money he got.
Yeah, Doug, let's get back to Neon Dan for one moment. His personal agent and his attorney, I might add, Eugene Parker, he said that the Yankees' contract really at this particular point is probably a done deal. There was no comment on the details, however.
Yankees aren't coming out like they usually do with the big money contracts. In the past, they have made a big deal themselves, saying all this money they're paying out. I think Steinbrenner wants to keep as low a profile as possible, which is going to be very tough considering he might be out of baseball very shortly. That whole Howard Spira case being heard by Faye Vincent right now, the alleged blackmailing of Steinbrenner by Spira, and Steinbrenner supposedly paid a lot of money with the Dave Winfield case. So it looks like Steinbrenner is going to be in hot water for quite a while, and it could come down that he may have to sell the Yankees. I think that would probably be the best thing for everybody concerned, especially all the Yankee fans around the country.